go missing for posting this, and if I do, you know who did it. There is some crazy shit going on in Southwest Colorado right now, and I need to spread the word.
Is there an active sect of the FLDS in southern Colorado trying to take over federal land? Well, it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. We're about to go through 20 years of history in about 4 minutes, so hold my hand, let's go.
I'm a forester, and I was at work yesterday in the San Juan National Forest, and one of the cowboys was going to herd his cattle, and he came down on an ATV and told us that we need to leave because it was not safe, because the Mormons are building this fence incredibly fast. They are threatening people, they are threatening the public, they are threatening the Forest Service. I spoke to someone from the Department of the Interior today, and they told me that the sheriff is in on it. The Mormons have paid off the sheriff to not do anything about it. This needs to make federal news. This is like an extreme threat to the public safety. People are losing access to recreation, cattle grazing.
The first delineation that is important is the FLDS are not the vanilla mainstream Mormon church when you think of like Salt Lake City and the big temple and all of that stuff. Not the same group. The fundamentalists are exactly that. They are practicing it the way that it was taught way back in the day, whereas the modern church, like the vanillas over there, are practicing the updated version. The FLDS in that area is nothing new. The first bit of land they bought out there was in 2004 when they purchased 60 acres. They would later purchase 80 more, making a total of 140, which they did build a few buildings on. However, the first time that this is reported in 2004 is a steady 2 years, give or take a couple months, before Warren Jeffs is arrested. These purchases were hardly unique at the time because things were starting to heat up, so they know that they've got to start moving Warren around, and they use these areas as kind of an underground network. We'll get to Lyle Jeffs in a second. Before they lost them, a lot of them, to default judgments because they don't like to answer lawsuits. We'll also get to that in just a second. But they have places in New Mexico, those are two different places, by the way, if you didn't know that, Arizona, Nevada, Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, Canada, Mexico, list goes on. This was one of the original spots that was scouted to be YFZ, but that ended up being built in El Dorado, Texas, which is the famous images we think of with the big white temple and the buses and everyone being taken away. It stays relatively quiet out there, even though obviously the locals don't like it, and local law enforcement is really not helpful, even when things do go on, just generally with this group of people. Now, that stops in 2016, 2015, when Lyle Jeffs is wanted for all kinds of crimes. They took kids out of school so that they could work in fields, stuff like that. Labor crimes, the FBI is looking for him, right? And then it comes up, well, could he be there? A fun little side jaunt about why they were looking for him in the first place, and if you don't believe me about law enforcement, the judge, after being informed that Lyle was an extreme flight risk, went ahead and let him out on bail anyway. Lyle proceeded to disappear for a year, using these compounds to kind of jump from one to the other until finally being arrested in South Dakota, where he was trying to pawn a $35 pocket knife. Lyle was at the time the bishop of the FLDS, although I did just hear somebody testify in open court that he is no longer. Here's a grain of salt that I took it with for you to have also. Everything's relatively quiet for a while. Nobody's sure if anyone's really even living there anymore because one day things just kind of died down. And that happens at a lot of these properties. But Warren at some point has issued an edict to his people that has cost them a lot of property and left a lot of people with nowhere to live and losing family homes that they've had for literally like 100 years. He tells them you're not to be involved with lawsuits, law enforcement, anything like that at all, and that includes answering lawsuits. And if you get sued for something and you don't answer it, that person gets a default judgment because you didn't answer, so they won by default. That is when the property rights were transferred to these people. Now, pay attention to the name, the Pipkin name right there. Then we get to yesterday, and this headline is really, really confusing, especially because we'll get into this. So Sheriff Steve Nolan says FLDS is not dangerous. Public access remains intact, and fence construction has ceased. Now, there is fence construction, but here's where we're going to get into a little bit of a doozy. The whole thing's been a doozy. Who am I kidding? That's what the sheriff's office is saying that this is, but look at the name down there. It's the same name. Now, keep in mind, again, you need another grain of salt. I got a shaker, you know what I'm saying? But this property, along with the property in South Dakota and one other property, were purchased by Blue Mountain Ranch, LLC, a company run by Patrick Pipkin, amongst others. You think he knows Pamela? I'm middle-aged, leave me alone. But then I also came across this, but this is not from a reputable news source. It was like in a blog, so please, seriously, all of this, because the thing is that the authorities, mainstream stuff, they feel like Warren Jeffs is in jail and we're done. The sheriff also went on to say that public perception of the past, it's not public perception, this actually did go on, so let's point this out. Infuriating dealing with law enforcement and these people, just so you know. But they said that they are ex-members, that's not them, everyone needs to chill out. So to be perfectly clear, someone absolutely is building a wall around federal land out there, but the sheriff is attesting that they are ex-FLDS and they are just trying to go off laws that have been off the books for years. They're not dangerous, but locals are reporting that there has been danger, there have been threats, there's been a lot of stuff like that. So at the very least, it does bear investigation by someone who is not local law enforcement. Whew, have a good day.